Hello, everyone. For those who do not know me, my name is Joseph Fries. If you've listened to the previous podcast between me and Alec, then you should be familiar with me. Speaking of Alec, say hello to the crowd, man.
Hello, everybody. We're doing once again another one of these podcasts, or to understand me and who I am as a person. Um, so you all get the gist. Let's get started.
Alrighty then. First question. What was your following beliefs before manifestation of Richterism?
I see. Um, well, essentially, before there was any Richter, there was a number of beliefs that we believed. Um, Collectively, we weren't really a thing until 2016, roughly. But before I formed the collective, I was more of like just some random historian. I was apolitical. I was more interested in the Germanic history, and I was kind of just more interested in like the Prussians and the Germans and all that kind of shit. And then after a while, as I was growing up, I became slightly more conservative about my beliefs because I remember one day I was talking about Germany, how great it was, and this guy told me like, really, it's great today. I'm like, yeah, it's a great country. He said, really? I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, why? What's the big issue? And he's like, because right now Germany is this great disgraceful, it's a complete utter disaster. I'm like, how? And he like showed me the videos of the immigration crisis in Europe, and I watched these, and I watched dozens of them, and it kind of opened my eyes about how the modern world was shaping it, and I was like, why are there all these issues? And I remember talking to my parents about it. And I'm like, why is something being done? And they told me there's nothing we can do, and it's part of life, and that things die, and that it's none of our concern. And at that point, I realized that nobody cared except me, and like a select few. And I hated this. I hated the fact that no one understood. So I became very nationalistic as a person. And for the next year and a half, I was very into nationalism, as well as my followers at the time, which was a very few amount of people. We were very obsessed with the idea of preserving your nation, preserving your culture, and being chauvinistic about it, if not fanatical about your own country. Um, at this point in time, the issue with this ideology was, first of all, it wasn't very optical. It wasn't very appealing to the normies, and second of all, simply put, most people that joined that became quote unquote nationalistic weren't really loyal to me; they were loyal to Germany. And it became an issue because when the group got deleted, they formed their own Germanies, they formed their own groups. And I said, "Aren't you guys loyal to me?" And they said, "No, we're loyal to Germany and only Germany." And I said, "Well, I made these groups, I made them great. Why don't you just follow me?" And they said, "No, we don't like you. We kind of used you to get this group active," and they basically told me to piss off.
Hmm.
I still maintain my beliefs at this time. I was still very nationalistic. I tried another group. 8 months later, same thing happened. Very few people remained loyal to me after that. I'd say about 100 people remained loyal after that group got deleted. So I quit Roblox, came back about 8 months later, and I formed a like Kingdom of Scotland or whatever. And this group, I said, no more of this nationalism or monarchist now. And a lot of the guys said like, this is retarded. We're supposed to be doing Germany and taking over, Europe and crushing the Allied powers. And I'm like, well, I've gotten bored of the Axis cause, and I kind of do my own thing now. I'm kind of bored of this whole wearaboo phase. It's kind of retarded, and all this other
Yeah.
jazz. I wasn't very much into it, and so they said, well, you know what? You're a traitor to Germany. You're a traitor to the fatherland. You should be shot. And they basically left me, and
Oh,
so I lost
God.
about half of my following at that point in time. And the people that were left was like people like Vianney, Desert Fox, Ethan, uh, Cody, and very, very few other people that I don't really remember. Polish, Dragonov, people like them all remained. And at
Yeah.
that point in time, I realized that a lot of these ideologies that we were believing in were more or less not beneficial to me or my groups. They're beneficial only to a dead cause on a little game. The belief of the access and establishing these Germanic groups and upholding that is kind of useless because there's not really any end goal or productive cause. In the end, it is still subject to opportunists, it's still subject to corruption, it's still subject to a lot of degeneracy that we see today within many genres. And so Scotland was the first group that we maintained a belief of loyalty to only myself. We allowed nationalism, we allowed patriotism, we allowed other ideologies, but the main goal was loyalty. there was no definition for the loyalty. It was just simply put, you're loyal to me, or you're gonna stay locked at the bottom of the group. And this went really well. When Scotland was sold, almost over 400 members left to join my next project, which was Oceana. Oceana was a more radicalized version of my loyalty program where we introduced re-education. So basically, we were the first to introduce the method of education re-education. The main goal of these concepts were essentially to maintain, or rather educate people on the concept of loyalty, because the issue with some people in Scotland was they didn't know what I meant by loyalty. Now, of course, they knew what it meant, but they didn't know that my standards of loyalty were. For instance, I remember this one guy who would claim that he was loyal, but yet he would argue with me every day and cause issues. He would criticize me. He would just sit there and cause issues. And I told him this is not loyal behavior. This is very disruptive, and this is very destructive to my works. And he said, well, then define what loyalty is. So I made this very long list of what loyalty was meant to me, and we introduced education so people could understand and maintain what was defined by me as proper loyalty. Hence the term, loyalty is not really, a gray concept. It's black and white. You're either loyal or you're not. And I said this is how it's defined, and this is how it's going to be, and that's that. And so after Oceana, I had a very dedicated following. At this point in time, I was very valued, and we were very honorable people that were also very loyal to both me and the groups that we were in. However, there were also a lot of people that didn't take things as seriously as we did. Hence, the difference between the fanatics and the fresh blood. The fresh blood was a term we gave to those who were new and didn't really understand. Like they said, sorry, I kind of spurred out there. They understood.
No,
yeah, they in a way, they said that they were loyal, but in the end, they didn't act loyal. Like for instance, my following nowadays, they're very serious, they're very mature, they're very dedicated to any concept of work. My following back then was split between the fanatics that were just like that, and the new fresh blood that literally, kind of the guy I mentioned earlier who would criticize me. They kind of just did whatever, they asked for free ranks, they annoyed me, they didn't take anything really much seriously. And
they were all
so,
opportunists at its finest.
yes, and so in November of 2018, I did a court. I put a couple people on trial for treason, and it was over very small issues. This was intentional too, and we exiled all of them. We lined up everyone outside the court, about 20 people, and I said, the time has come, and my leniency has ended, and the era for prosperity shall continue with the one condition, and that condition is discipline. And so, after November of 2018, we introduced discipline, which made them, molded all of them into actual, dedicated loyalists and followers that were willing to put forward our groups first, and not just their own well-being. Obviously, this community as a whole exists to succeed. That's what we want. That's what we aim for. And to succeed, we must maintain the efforts of these principles that I've obviously listed. And henceforth, in November of 2018, we formed the ideology of Richterism, which was defined as unconditional loyalty to myself, and only myself, with the condition of God. We also made it clear that religion comes first, if you are religious, and that I am never to be referred to as any sort of God. That Jesus Christ is the King of all kings, and that I am simply just, amongst those kings. And but in the end, it's God, and then it's me, on this platform, that is, when it comes to this beliefs. So before Richterism, it was mostly nationalism, and then eventually it was just basic loyalty. It was basically, okay, you're loyal to me with no defined concept. When Richterism was formed, there was a definable concept for it, and it was more easier to, submit to.
Solidify it.
Yeah, solidify it.
Yeah. My own experience, before Actually, when I really joined the platform, I was really extremely left-leaning because then I just gotten out of civics. I'm like really idealistic about that. But encountering a lot of these nepotists and opportunists, I mean, it's more mellowed that out, I'd say.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Pretty much. I think that things have uh mellowed out a tad as well. I think there's a lot of toxicity still in the community and whatnot, but
Oh, there definitely is.
as time will go on, I believe that things will get better, especially with my influence now prominent.
Well, with a lot of older members who've more or less resulted to trolling now leaving, I mean, it's gotten a bit better, but it's still nowhere near any sort of actual level that of maturity and respect that you'd probably see in the Napoleonic community.
Mhm.
Anyways, on to the next question. What led to the foundation of Richterism as a whole? Well, I think, did we already really discuss that?
Uh, Pretty much, but I'll go into deeper detail.
All
So
right.
I'll just go into why we formed it anyway. Um, so obviously, Richterism as a whole was founded because of the incompetency and lack of discipline from the other members. You know, when we joined groups, for instance, there'd be a large group of members that didn't take it seriously. They'd, go around and they'd meme around and they'd act immature, they'd act improper, and it didn't contribute to when I gave orders. I'd give an order, and instead of being followed, they'd forget about it and just go off what they're doing. And so at the time, I was very dedicated to my own members, and it was very hard to just exile half of my own following, and I had to. The only way to rid of all these agendas was to reform it completely, and this was a major risk, because in a lot of cases, if you reform an entire group and exile half of your staff, it probably will die because that's your activity right there. You just split your activity in half, and that's a major setback, especially if some of them are like 4-year loyalists, but I had no other choice. Besides, most of the new loyalists that were acting incompetent were mostly new, so it wasn't that big of a loss, but it definitely was hard to do, and so that led to the foundation of it, really as a whole.
All right. Okay, question three. When did you create Richterism and why? Well,
Um, it kind of answered
yeah,
that,
that's
but
yeah. Okay, question four then. Do you believe that your community may be just a bit too serious as compared to others?
um, well, if you've heard of Vactus or if you've heard of Devon, those
Uh,
guys take it to a whole new level. Vactus
oh
has
yes.
full-on blood oaths where God only knows what goes on there. But they're so devoted that with only 500 followers, they can maintain 100 people in game. It's literally a job for their members. Their members are like, you know, real life devotion to this game. Devon, who not many people know of, takes it on a very similar level. He dresses up as his characters. Like in real, what he'll do is he'll go on stream. He'll stream himself, and if he's playing like I don't know Galactic Empire, he'll dress up in like an Imperial officer suit. Like he full on LARPs, and his members are very serious. They take it so
Yeah.
seriously that they actually installed spyware on people's computers just to monitor them and make sure they're not being
Oh
disloyal.
wow.
So when you compare my following to these followings, I would say Vactus is like, power level 100 out of 100 when it comes to seriousness. Devon is like level 80. I'd say I'm more on a level 20. And I'd say people like
Yeah.
Lavo are on like a level 5. So when you compare all these other communities to mine, it's like, to be fair, I play games like Warband, Holdfast, War of Rights, and the people on there like have accents just for the groups that they do. Like I'm in a Confederate group for War of Rights, and all the guys there speak with a southern accent intentionally, and they're very serious, and they act like it's almost like a reenactment. We'll be marching, and like they don't even talk about personal life; they talk about just the gameplay, or not the gameplay, but really the game in general. So when you see these other followings, and you see my following, it's like we're really not that high up when it comes to seriousness. The reason why we're serious is because this is a game that we want to win. And if we just sit around and shitpost and just don't take anything here seriously because we find comedy more relevant than playing the actual game, we're not going to prevail. And in the end, we want to prevail. We want to strive and survive as a community. If you look at Lavo, you look at Lewis, look at Zofio, look at any of the other communities, they're faltering. They're falling apart because they do not have this mindset. Their entire mindset is based around purely fun. And yes, we want to have fun, but with fun comes safety and order. If there is no order, if there is no principle which warrants an active community, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, he's just lost his touch entirely. I don't even know why he still keeps on doing this, because his following, he could have the best following, but he can easily destroy it in one fell swoop.
Yes.
With his own incompetence and so on and so forth. But yeah, you guys, the Richterians are not exactly what I'd call the most serious of. They're not ranked high on that scale of being overly serious.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what I'm about to send you. Do you remember this?
Yes. Yeah. It's like reminds me of Lewis. I mean, Lewis at one point was more serious than me. So was Nerfer. Nerfer was recruiting people into a real-life atheist secular group. Lewis was recruiting people into a full-scale Nat-social movement to take over the Northwestern United States. Like, how crazy is that? And I'm the serious
remember
one.
that.
And I'm the serious one all of a sudden. It's like, in comparison to all these other groups and collectives, I mean, who's the people sending personal attacks and trying to, like, confront me in real life? Not me. It's them. I mean, look at it this way. I'm the one trying to have a character, as in an in-game character that sticks to the game. These other people, like a lot of Lavos people and other groups, want to maintain a more personal character, where their real life is their in-game character. And I find that more serious than what I do. When we're just trying to play the game and we act like the characters in game, I think that's less serious than someone coming in game, talking about their real life and bringing real life matters into a video game.
Well, even their real life matters is absolute nonsense.
Yeah. It's like, to be honest, nobody cares if, something in real life is really going on unless it's, I don't know. In my opinion.
I mean, if it's like serious or something like that.
Yeah, if it's serious.
I mean,
yeah, fair enough. But in the end, we play this game to play its concepts, to play its aesthetics, to play its gameplay. And a lot of people come on this game, and you look at the chats, they just talk about themselves in real life, and modernist policy.
Or they're trying to screw everyone over.
Opportunists, So in a way, I think if you truly want to have fun on this platform, you have to embrace the all the concepts. You can't come into the game and say, "Oh, I'm here to have fun," and you're only here to post memes and to raid. In that case,
but you have to have a healthy balance.
Yeah, in that case, you're just here to play a first-person shooter. If you're like me or my members, and you play the game to experience the cause and to establish a community and to enjoy the history and the politics of what's going on, then that is I think more appealing, at least in my own opinion. I think that when I give speeches in a VC, I think it's still me and my character. Like right now, I'm obviously out of character, but when I'm in character, I think that's less taking the game seriously and more just trying to play the actual game. If I was taking the game seriously, that would mean I'm bringing personal affairs in. I'm trying to attack people IRL. I'm doing
trying to send pizzas to each other's.
Yeah, trying to make every pizza levitate to someone's house. I mean, and that's my opinion. I think that if people heard that, they would be more enlightened on what we do. Because now it's like, oh, you made a speech. Oh, that's cringe. It's like your perception.
Oh, look at him. He sounds like he's some sort of autistic kid.
Yeah.
Talking to all these numbnuts who somehow believe in him.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, the people that are saying that I'm cringe and I'm too serious are the same people that follow dead leaders. Groups that have failed and continue to fail. So.
Or they themselves are problem causers.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Question 5. Why do you believe that people are so loyal to you?
That's a good question. And there are times in life where I will sit there and this is on rare occasion. I'm obviously not self-conscious as people would think. Um, but, you know, there are times I'll sit there and wonder, like, how did I do this? You get Lewis, you get Lavo. Lewis dreamed and wanted fanatics, and he thought he had them during the not the Great Awakening, the Northern whatever
Northwest
Awakening,
Front, but
Northwest
they ended
Front
up
thing.
betraying him as
Yeah,
soon as he came out.
exactly. You get Nerfer, and Nerfer had very dedicated followers during Shafe, during TWA, and in the end, a lot of them betrayed him. And you look
Oh,
at, go on.
sorry. Oh, Nerfer himself, he's betrayed the ideals that he's even standing for. At this point, he's LARPing like the rest of them.
Yeah, and you know, I look at myself and I think, how did I, of all people, accomplish more than the great Louis Lavo Zulfiel and, Nerfer and John? Well, John's not great, but at the,
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago,
John, that's an entire different
yeah,
topic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. 4 years ago, I was sitting there with a group and I had barely any real fanatics, of course. And, you know, I think really it's the fact that, first of all, I think it's the charisma. I think it's the fact that I'm extremely out there. Um, Within the first year of coming into this community, I already was speaking on voice chats. I was licking my face everywhere. I was extremely open with who I was. And not in a cringe sense either, where I'm talking about my real life like I just mentioned. No, I would
Yeah.
take pictures of myself, and I would, in different contexts, I would do it. And I was very open. I think people like that about me, is how I'm not some random creep in the basement. With people like Lewis, with Lavo, with Nerfer, they're very mysterious. They're not very open. They're not very known about themselves. They could be in a basement. They could have no job. They could be, these losers. Some of them we know are losers. Some of them we don't know. With me, I'm an open book. People know I have a 3.7 GPA. People know I'm doing really well in school and college. People know that I have a political career and that it's going really well, surprisingly, considering how right wing I am. Um, People know that I have a life, that I've, dated girls in real life, and I've done things, and that I have friends and whatnot. And I think that that's a huge, huge impact on my following, is that I'm someone that they can trust and rely on, because I tend to, I prove to be mentally stable, in a sense. The other reasons are because I'm so devoted to my own following, because I care so much for my own community, the work I put into my groups, the aesthetics, the victories and the glory we reap. That's a big one. I think the fact that we always win, and we rarely, on super rare occasion, do we ever lose at anything. There are occasions where we'll have setbacks. We'll have a hacking occasion, or we'll have a dox attack, or a DDoS attack, or a scam attack. But this was in the past, and there's setbacks that no one really cares about. Because in the end, it's faith that wins the battle. It's not how many victories, it's not how many defeats, it's not who or what. It's faith that in the end wins the battle. I think that even if we lost every raid, even if everything was a failure, even if everything went downhill, I would still maintain the following because of faith. In the end,
Yes.
I've been doubted again and again and again to a level of insanity, and everyone witnessed this. We were doubted so much that we could almost believe their very own lies when they said the same exact thing over and over and over and over again. We almost could believe the enemy's own lies, but we didn't, because we maintained our own faith. And I think that's a big one that people like. They like the idea that I'm never going to stand down, that I'm constantly fighting, that I'm never standing down, and that I'm always going to try and be here to fight for my people. And so in the end, I feel like that I give off these huge energies of authority, and people love that. They love the fact that I'm out there, that I'm leading, and that I'm just dominating everything in my path. They like the comfortability of being in that collective. In the end, I think that there's also a select few that are loyal because they like the cause, the community of it. They like how there's all these people, and we're all fighting for a good cause, and that in the end, it's patriotic, It's passionate and it's fiery. It's radical. It's a radical idea, and people love all the fire that comes out of it. They love the spirit and the passion, and that attracts a lot of people when they see all this action and fieriness going on. And that's what I think maintains their loyalty in me. Lewis, on the other hand, these other people are closed books. They're rumored to be losers. I heard Lewis doesn't even have a job and he used to work at a bakery. These other
Oh,
people.
I heard he was working at a call center now, a
Oh,
government-run
man.
call center.
Yeah, I don't even know, what's going on with them. No one knows, you know.
I mean, you got Lavo preaching his IRA nonsense, and then Zophiel. I mean, I don't know, pumping steroids and whatnot.
Yeah, Jimbo and Zophiel. Zophiel is quite mentally stable. I think he has pretty chill, decent life. I think he should quit the platform, and I think that she should pursue his real life. In my own opinion.
Yeah,
But
I'd suggest never contact Amber ever again.
yeah.
Oh, I hate that woman so much. I
Yes.
hate her.
I never really got to meet. I think I have met Amber, but
Oh, if you ever encountered her in the second Rhine, oh my God. You know they put her in charge of the officer academy.
oh, actually, yes, I have met her. I have met her. I'm not
Oh,
gonna
I
talk
hate
about
her.
her, but oh, all right, yeah. So in the end, I mean, everyone has their reasons. I don't think people are really in it for just the benefits. I think most of them are in it for, you know, the act for moral reasons. We obviously are against opportunism. We're against exploiting people for their own individualistic gain. And as a result of that, those who seek those more deteriorating measures tend to stay away from my collective, and that's more or less a good thing. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm going to lose my following. I've never really been afraid of because, I mean, the ratio of lose the gain when it comes to followers is I lose like at least 1 or 2 followers a month. And I mean like loyalists, not just well, yeah, like the 1 month loyalist suddenly leaves like a month later, and then we gain like 10 more. At this rate, we're gaining like 20 loyalists a month, and about 20 of those loyalists, or out of 20 of those loyalists rather, about 3 of them become a part of the dynasty. And so we're growing and have been at a substantial rate. And I think that will continue. And those that do betray in the end, they tend to, they don't really go very far before they want to come back. And the reasons that they do betray are usually very immoral or random. Like, oh, I'm not going to go into that right
Or
now.
they just want that free rank. They're opportunistic
Yeah,
assholes.
they want the free rank, they don't get it, and then they leave.
Yep. All right. On to the next one. On to the next question. Ugh, I can't speak anymore.
Yeah, I can't either. It's been a very long day.
Yeah. Why do you think that certain cliques within the community hate you and your ideology?
Another good question. Well, really, I think it's because jealousy. And this has been the case since my very first war group. When I was a corporal and I was leading squadrons at occupied Paris, leading them around and whatnot, the other corporals are very jealous. The difference between the corporals and the people nowadays is the corporals at the time were very lazy. It is very, very rare to ever meet a corporal that stands up, says, let's host a patrol, gets 10 people online, and marches around with those rankers. It is an
Oh, you
extreme
never
rarity.
even see that now anymore because they don't even emphasize the meaning of the rank within the community. Like
Yeah,
within the Napoleonic community, you can be a corporal, you can still host a battalion, and so I mean a company, and so on and so forth. You can lead that at bring in activity. But here it's just like, okay, if you want to host rallies and so on and so forth, you gotta be an officer, you gotta kiss ass for that free rank, yada yada yada.
yeah. Um, so the corporals back then couldn't really do anything about it. They were like, almost scared. I feel like people have to have that special rank to have power for me. I can really walk in any group that's loyal to me, give an order and they'll obey it, and I'm comfortable doing that. I've been ranked randomly, excuse me, and random groups, like Backle Sith Empire, and I'd walk in the 10,000 member group, and I'd have a line of like 50 officers, and I right away just went to work. I didn't really care they didn't know who I was. I have a mission. I'm gonna get it done. And if they don't like it, they get the hell out, because I'm not gonna stand for bullshit. That's how I've always been. And so when it comes to cliches, I think that they see this energy, they see this power, and they wish they could have it, but they don't have it. And so what they try to do is destroy it. And they destroy it through the measures of, for instance, normalizing shitposting. They come into my servers, they come into my games, and all they do is meme. Because they know if all they do is meme, it will almost spread like a plague to my members, and then my members will do the same thing, and it will destroy the concept of discipline. Because then, when we do raids and we want people to fall in line, they'll start memeing around, and they'll fall in a line, and they'll shoot each other, and they'll horseplay. They'll cause incompetence, and that is the exact thing we want to prevent. And so, the anti-Richterists as a whole have and will continue to oppress us because they know for a fact that they will not have what we have. And they have done this before. They've tried to mock and recreate what I've made and then claim they're anti-Richter. And it's kind of funny because their own men don't even realize it. Their own men don't even realize that they become what they want to destroy, because it's the only way, really. To be honest, if they want to destroy them, they have to. If they have to... Sorry, let me rephrase this. To defeat Lavo and Lewis, what I had to do was create a superior ideology, a superior aesthetic, and that was the Roman Empire. Why I chose Roman Empire specifically, I don't really know, but it was far more superior ideologically wise as compared to their Werebuism, at least in my own opinion. And a lot of members swapped sides during those wars because they realized this, and they maintained themselves with my following as a result. And so, to defeat me, and this is kind of a secret I shouldn't really give up, but, it's kind of a tip because the anti-Richters are not doing their best. They've been extremely dumb and very, very ignorant in their recent actions. They do not know how to counter me. And it's not by being the opposite. It's not about memeing and shitposting and not having community. It's retarded. Because my ideas are community, work, loyalty, and tradition. And they oppose all of these elements, which means they're not going to have a community, they're not going to have order, they're not going to have organization, they're not going to have traditions necessary to maintain these or anything. And that's why they always fail. Because their societies are built off of these extremely more liberalistic ideas, and they fall apart. This is a war game. If they don't maintain a serious atmosphere, they're not going to be able to fight me. And so the only way to counter me is through a more serious and a more loyal following. This might require someone more charismatic and more confident than myself, but it will require someone like that to defeat me. But
I don't think it's actually... Oh, sorry. I don't think it's really based on their more liberalistic aspects. I mean, if anything, it's more of their conservative aspects where they keep their old guard. They actually never change or elevate actual competent new officers. And they try and follow the same cash grab strategy over and over and over and over again. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, we've reached 2,000 members, but activity's going to go down the tank because we haven't done anything to actually fix it. We are still using the map that we launched with. We are still using the same guns. We still have not fixed anything. We might have new uniforms, but that is it. We have not changed anything. We have not evolved. We are at the point where we're going to start. We're at the point where we've reached our peak, and it's going to go downhill from there.
Well, I disagree, and it's because the whole idea of shitposting and meme posting didn't come to effect and relevancy until about 2017. And so by definition, this is very liberal, because liberal is more of a revolutionary term for new things. I think the more conservative thinking people in this community would think more seriously, because that's how we thought back in 2014, 2015, 2013, 2012. We thought very realistically, we thought very morally, and we thought very seriously. And those are aspects that I've maintained because that was how we were back then. Back in 2016, 2015, there was no off-topic channels. Everything in those groups were done seriously. There was only one time in 2016 where I remember we were memeing around. It was like really degenerative, really. I think they had a separate Skype chat, and it was for like, I'm not gonna get into it, but it was like very unorthodox
Explicit.
material. Yeah, explicit material that they were posting in there and like, you know, watching and stuff. You know, I was like, oh, look at this hot Aryan woman. It was really cringe, but you know, that was the one example I remember. I went in
Well,
game
I think there
actually.
was another one.
Well, yeah, there were
I
other groups
think
that
there was.
IGA,
Well, there was
IGA.
another one. I believe it was back in 2014 or something like that with Lewis and his KKK group.
Oh, that. I don't think they were being ironic though. I think they were being unironic with what they were doing. Unironic
I don't.
KKK members.
I
IGA
don't know.
was the first group to basically endorse this meme cultism. But
Yes.
I mean I recall back in German forces, I wanted to create like this like jazz. So they had like this tavern in Paris, and I wanted to make like a tavern and like have music playing in the background and whatnot. And so what I did, it was stupid, but I did Frog Me, and almost immediately the officers brought me over, yelled at me, and said what I did was a complete disgrace to the group and immature, and demoted me from sergeant to corporal, just because of that. No warning, nothing else. That was what they did, just for doing that one command. And so it was a very strict atmosphere. I remember actually another occasion, um, they demoted me from captain to lieutenant for misusing capital letters in a sentence. That was how strict it was back then. Okay,
Oh, those were the days.
the good old the good
When
old
grammar,
days. Oh, I
back
didn't
when
like it.
actual grammar mattered.
Back, my ideas today would be seen as liberal in 2015. So, with that in mind, I think that the most of the ship posters are more or less liberal thinking on this platform, because it's really not how the community was, not really how it works, in my opinion. It's meant to be taken seriously. It's meant to have war clans and these wars and these, all this stuff going on. So, that's my opinion.
Well, that's understandable from that viewpoint.
Yeah.
Quite understandable.
But in the
All right,
end,
on to. Oh, sorry.
they're jealous. They want what I have, and they're not going to have what I have. End of story. You may continue.
Now on to the next question. You tend to have anyone that betrays you? If so, why do you think they do this?
Uh, hmm. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to traitors, really, they never do it out of logical reasons. On one occasion, it was because this guy said he was going to retire, and in reality, he didn't retire from Roblox. He tried to another group, and it's like, he basically lied to me, so I exiled him. On another occasion, it was this one guy that joined my dynasty very recently. Not recent today, but like back in April he joined, and within a month he already was causing issues. And that's been a time. Essentially what happened, he was elected chairman of the Workers' Party of Korea, and almost immediately he went inactive for a very long period of time.
Oh,
Did
I
nothing.
remember this.
He went idle. It was not the most smartest thing. And so I asked him this about 2 weeks later. I'm like, why have you neglected your own branch and people? And he said, well, my girlfriend broke up with me. COVID-19 is going on. I'm depressed. And because I'm depressed, this is a good excuse for why I should be inactive. I'm like, dude, you just took a position of chairman of the Workers' Party of Korea. If you're going to command a branch and a group, you might as well have time to do it. Why would I hire someone that can't do his job? And he was like, oh, you're judging me, you're being judgmental.
Why would you even accept it in the first place, though?
Well, it wasn't like this
Why would
before.
the guy even accept it?
Yeah. Well, before, he wasn't acting like that at all. At first, he was very loyal, he was very active, and he was very competent. And all of a sudden, a month later, he's like, oh, I'm really depressed, and I can't do my job, and because I can't do my job, it's like, come on. And,
Well, at least he could have done was resign.
Yeah. At least he could have resigned, and he didn't. And I think what's even more retarded is after I exiled him, he formed his own group, and he's active like every other day, and has been for the past 5 months since then. So I feel like he lied to me. It's like, I don't even understand. maybe his girlfriend did break up with him, but it's like, you know, why would you accept the position if you're bored or if you change your mind or it just doesn't make any sense. And then on other occasions, it's just like random. Randomly, someone will just want to leave, and they'll do it
Yeah.
in an unorthodox measure, and we just don't know why. Or they'll get mad at me. Or the most common case is when someone does something I don't like, I tell them to stop, and they try to make an excuse. I expose them for their excuse. They get all angry. We argue, and it results in them being exiled in the end. That's how most exiles usually are. And really, it's like dumb. It's like all I have to do is like, accept my opinion and my stance on something and move on. If you're going to argue with someone that's very authoritative and isn't going to change his mind on an idea that I believe in, well then it's stupid to argue about. You're not going to change my mind. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to submit to you, my follower, and your beliefs because you disagree with me. That's not how it works here. Now, I don't mind being advised when I want to, or being given constructive criticism when I ask for it, but, you have to be careful about it, because you can't just go to me in the middle of a rally and just start saying, why is the line in a column and not an SDS, and don't even do it when I'm in a good mood. It's all about timing,
Yeah. There are certain points where it's warranted, but then there are certain points where it's like, what the hell? What are you doing? You shouldn't even be doing this.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stupid.
It's like I said before, I've been doing this, I've been leading for the past 5 years, and I know what I'm doing, okay? If I say take a right flank and has more people, then I have a plan. I'm not stupid, I know strategics, I know tactics, and it's like, unless we're losing a war, advice is pretty much irrelevant. I mean, we've been doing the same thing for the past year, and it continues to work. Why change it up? If we've been using the same strategies and same tactics for a very long time, and it's been working, it's like it's more destructive to change what I'm doing than to remain consistent. And so when it comes to criticism and when it comes to arguing and debating, it's a waste of time. You waste an hour of my time putting forward your opinion because, not because you're trying to like help me out, but because you're selfish or you're in a pissy mood. And so in the end, it's just better to listen and, when warranted, to give advice, but to be very careful with your wording, because it's very easy to say something that might seem very aggressive and might just piss me off. So
Yeah,
if you're going to say it, yeah.
You always have to be diplomatic with everything.
Yes.
I mean, that's why I try to be diplomatic with everything that I try to do, unless I'm really pissed off.
Yeah. So that's my opinion on traitors. In the end, they usually come running back to me, and I usually deny them. I'm like, nope, dude, you betrayed me. This is the second time or the third time, and you keep doing this. You promised me to do it again, and you did it again. So why should I believe you're not going to do it this time? And, they gave me some shitty excuse, and I'm like, well, I can't trust you anymore because you could have aided my group, you could have leaked information, you could have done all this other stuff, and I can't trust you. Or I'll say, come back in another year. Maybe they're like 12 years old, and they're young, and they're ignorant, and it's like, it's understandable. I say, come back another year, maybe you'll be mature and you're ready, we'll try this again. And so that's usually the case, but it's very rare when I give another chance. Very rare, because it's a waste of time usually. It's a waste of everyone's time, and most people that come back a second time, if not a third time, usually mess up again. It's very rare that someone learns their lesson these days, and it's kind of a shame. I've always learned my lessons from making mistakes, and it's a shame that other people don't from experience. That's my answer to that question.
Yeah. All right. It's actually pretty deep.
Yeah.
All right. On to question 8 now. Do you think that despite your past accomplishments, that eventually your community will more or less, die out?
Well, everything dies eventually. Everything. Perhaps not every single entity and idea will die. But, in the end, the main goal of us is survival. And to survive, we must win. And therefore, we will win because we must win. But in the end, we are not all going to live more than 100 years. Maybe we will. Maybe there will be like a, you know, something will be done. We
One in a
can.
few that are going to be centenarians.
Yeah,
I mispronounced it.
yeah. So when it comes to our community, really, as long as one single person maintains our ideas, it will live on. Because I mean, for instance, I came on, I gave these ideas, and I was one person, and it was influenced thousands of other people. And all it takes is one person to utilize my tactics and my strategics, and to use it to spread and influence an ideology. And so long as one person maintains the standard, raises the banner highly, and believes the same thoughts and ideas that we do, well, it will live on. And henceforth, as I've said before, I believe it will live on a millennia, however long that is. Even for this game, even if this game dies, I think that people will still mention, what happened with the with this collective, with this community. Even if Roblox dies, our community will still exist. So it's not only exclusive to Roblox. I mean, I've met people IRL. We play other games on Steam. We have a Discord server with over 300 people, a YouTube channel with over 500 people. List goes on. I think it will live on, regardless of what happens. And if it ever is to fall, or if it ever is to reach demise, doesn't mean it will die. For as long as one single thought, one single idea is maintained, it can live. And it can forever have that potential. So, will it eventually die? In the context of this platform may eventually die. It might eventually get shut down. And that will include all of our Roblox assets. In the context of the idea, of the beliefs, of the loyalty, of the manpower, no. I think that our ideas are way too powerful and way too fiery to just be forgotten and left on the game. It is, of course, exclusive and only relevant to this game. It's not a real-life ideology. But I think the community aspects of this Richterist idea will maintain itself. The ideas of the ideology will carry on, outside of the platform, because obviously these ideas are basic principles of a community. And so that's my opinion on it dying or not.
All right, then. On to question 9. If there was advice that you could give to those who wanted to be more loyal within your own community, what would you tell them?
So this is probably a very good question, because a lot of people strive to be the perfect loyalist, the perfect fanatic. They strive to be a core member, a diehard of the Richterian people. That's where you're wrong. It's not about being, more loyal than the other person. It's not about being, the best of the best. It's almost as bad as wanting a rank. Okay, if you are loyal and you want to parade it around, like, for instance, if I logged in
Yeah.
and I went on the server and said I'm a loyalist to Alexander, blah 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 blah, and spent an hour talking good things, is it really to benefit the community, or is it to parade myself around to expand my influence and obtain something? There is a huge difference between being independent and being a leader to enhance our ideas and
Yeah.
to benefit the following, and between parading yourself around and trying to look really loyal for attention, for benefits, and for rewards. And so to be a good loyalist, I think the best loyalist out there, if a loyalist does a good deed and doesn't tell anyone about it. If you're offered a rank in another group and you decline and you tell no one about it, that's the most loyal thing you can do. If someone offers you a rank in another group and says leave them for our group, and you deny it, and then you go in a server and say, hey, this guy offered me a rank, look at me, I'm so loyal. It's like, you're parading yourself around. It's like obvious you're not really that loyal. You're just trying to use it to get more influence. And so loyalty, at the same time, there is also between sucking up and being annoying. I'm not saying to suck up to me and parade me around like some sort of god, But I'm not saying to be brutally honest and criticize me and, like, you know, be autistically annoying with me, if you know what I mean by that. You want to maintain honesty and at the same time maintain passion. If there is,
Yeah,
for
I do.
instance, if we are losing a raid, don't go around saying we're losing a raid. That's annoying. If we're winning a raid, um, maintain the passion, maintain aspects of loyalty, obviously. Um, but don't be stupid. Don't charge into enemy gunfire and say, "Well, we're Richters. We're gonna win the raid anyways." Nothing bad can happen because that's just being stupid. That's like drowning
Yeah.
and saying, "Oh, well, I'm a Richterist. I can't die." And the Richterists never die. And while you're drowning, it's like stupid. So once you,
Or it's like you're sitting in the middle of a forest fire and you're like, I'll be all right. God will protect me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A balance is what is most necessary. And so to be the perfect loyalist, you want to strive to be loyal, but make sure that you know, there's a good example. Okay, if it's the final days of the Reich and we're in the basement and everyone, and let's say my hands are broken, and I tell Walter to take the Luger and shoot me in the head. Okay, Walter picks up the Luger and aims at my head. He has two options. He can either refuse because of how loyal he is, or he can carry out because I told him to. The right answer to this question is to disobey. And I'll say why. Because in the end, the main goal of loyalty is to do what is best for this collective, to do what is best for this community and for myself. It is not always about being a blind loyalist, it's about what is most beneficial to this community. And so if you just blindly do things and you realize it will harm the community, you're not really, that loyal. The only issue with this logic is people have used this against me before. I've had people, almost with the tactics when I told you about earlier, when I said let's attack the right flank, but there's more people on it. People will tell me, for instance, there's people on the right flank, don't attack the right flank, attack the left flank. There's less people on it. And it's like you got to realize when it's the right time to be insubordinate and to be subordinate. If for instance, a better example besides the gun one, if the server is being AA'd, and I say everyone, don't look at the Discord server, or you'll be exiled, and the person takes, or if I say everyone line up, and a guy is trying to kill everyone, and he shoots the guy trying to kill everyone, that's a quick instance of proper insubordination. But when I'm trying to give orders and I'm a leader and I'm trying to order this and this and this and we're attacking right flank and we're ordering this and this and that, and it's like the guy blatantly says no, I believe this. Okay, that's an example of being an absolute retard. It's a very complex thing to understand, but I mean honestly, if you want to be this perfect flawless loyalist, that's what you got to do. And we all have flaws. I think the idea of the most perfect flawless loyalist is almost impossible. It's near impossible to be perfect like that. The perfect loyalty like that is very hard. But it is my definition of one. Oh, and another thing I want to mention about loyalists is I also like when they're independent. I hate having to spoon feed people. I like leading, I like, making decisions. But when I have to micromanage people because they're too afraid to take action, that's really annoying. I've had people ask me permission to literally host things. It's like, dude, you're a major and you're afraid to host raid because you're afraid that I'm going to judge you? Like, come on, Like, be a man, grow some balls. Of course I want you to do shit. Host a raid, host a training, be independent. Don't be too independent to the point where you're, leading the entire group and taking my position of power, but don't just sit there idly and wait for me to make
Show
all the
that sort of
decisions.
autonomy.
Yeah,
The
autonomy.
initiative.
Take the initiative.
Loyal initiative, yeah.
Yes, the loyal initiative is what I expect from a loyalist, and recently I've been seeing a lot of that. A lot of people have been trying to take that initiative,
Definitely.
and I am really, really proud of that. So, that's the ultimate guide to a good loyalist. Those that also maintain good grammar, they maintain a code of honor, of chivalry, good moral code, very traditionalist, very, in a sense, proper. grammar and maturity wise, non-degenerative wise, I respect a lot. It's not really that I see him more as loyal, but more as respectable people. If you want me to respect you have to act respectable. I don't respect those that chat out, or those that, are a man and don't simp for women. I respect those that maintain chivalry, honor, um, help others out, camaraderie, uh, noble deeds, things like that. Those who maintain a good character, I will respect. Those that can maintain grammar and not fulfill unorthodox urges for a long period of time, I can respect the most out of any person.
Definitely. Especially considering some recent events.
Yes,
Uh,
I can agree with you on that.
all right. Question 10 now. What I what sort of ideologies can you really tolerate? As in, like, from ideologies on both sides of the spectrum.
Well, for someone that is very right-wing, very politically radical, surprisingly, I'm pretty tolerant of other ideologies. In real life, this is a bit personal, but this is also a more out of character podcast, to be fair. But
It's
in real
down to
life,
earth.
yeah, it's down to earth, so you can expect this coming from me right now. Anyways, I've tried to unify the populist left and the populist right in real life. The only issue with the two sides is the populist left is still stuck in the idea of systematic racism, and they think that the populist right is too right-wing socially. Both sides agree that the elite control everything. It's the issue that they disagree on social values. And so when it comes to ideologies, I'm very tolerant. We've had very far left individuals join us through Korea, whether it's Soviet Sky, Jack Richterian, whether it's Xavier's, who's more liberal. There are a lot of Richters that are very loyal and are very left leaning. In fact, as people know, I'm very, how do I put this? Heterosexually conscious, which basically means I'm very, supportive of my own, both my culture, my beliefs, and I guess you could say, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so with these beliefs in mind, it is potentially offensive to a few minority people. But nevertheless, I can tolerate them in my groups, so long as they're not parading themselves around, so long.
Or they're trying to enforce their own ideology on others. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the point where it goes too far, and
yes,
that's what a lot of people, I mean, or at least the loud majority, as I'd call it, that's what they do, and they get attention by the media and so on and so forth,
yes,
and they end up giving them their own beliefs a bad reputation with the other side.
yes. So, you know, I'm not saying people have to be socially conservative and economically left wing to be a part of my collective, but that is who I am. Those are my values. And if you intend to fully become a part of my ideas, then you will have to sort of follow those ideas. If you post in my servers or chat something debatable or disagreeable, like, oh, BLM is the most fantastic movement in the world, I'm going to debate you. And you have to be prepared, because when I debate someone, you have to be careful about not sounding like a dick and being very respectful, because obviously in a community that is very based around being very respectful towards me and obedient, it's very hard to debate something without compromising on your own beliefs.
Especially if you're not a strong debater, because you have the two types of debaters. You can have those that, yes, they have their stance, but they're always willing to compromise, or they can actually see a bit of the reasoning from the other side. And then you have those that, okay, they can see themselves losing the debate, but the thing is, they're just going to take it to a whole new level.
Yeah. At the end of the day, all I expect from the people is loyalty and hard work. If they can put those two ideas into my collectives, then they are perfectly fine. If they are a hardworking individual and they do not push their ideas on others, their personal ideas, that is, um, then they will get along just fine. But if they put out their ideas and I see it, I will challenge them. And if they are not prepared to debate me, then that is their fault. They must realize my beliefs, and they must do their best not to be offended if I am open about them. And that is true of the matter. At the same time, I have economically left ideas, and I have politically, socially right ideas. I have ideas on both sides of the spectrum. So I can relate to liberals that are very anti-elite and conservatives that are very traditionalist and socially, against pornography and against very degenerative forms of things in reality. And so, with this in mind, it's very easy to unify these people because we're all bonded by the ideas of community. And so long as we're bonded by these ideas, we will strive. Very
I
rarely
think
do we really debate. There are a few that do cause debates every so often with other people, but in the end, we come to one conclusion. In the end, we come to a resolve. We accept other people's beliefs, and we carry on with our day. As I said before, however, um, those who really do want to devote themselves and live up to my exact standards, well, obviously, my standards are my political beliefs regarding the social right-wing ideas pertaining to traditionalism and culture and that sort of gig, and economically left ideas which pertain to state capitalism, anti-elitist rhetoric, and the concept of labor being actually celebrated by the working class. So with these two combined elements, those are my personal beliefs. On this platform, obviously, we do different groups. We're not politically motivated on this platform. We've done communist groups, we've done imperialist groups, we've done socialist groups, democratic groups, empire groups, nationalist groups, all sorts of groups. We are not politically motivated by ideologies on this platform. We do whatever looks most aesthetically pleasing. We commend nations like the DDR and DPRK to an extent. I say that because of how controversial it is. And we
oh
commend
yes.
and we commend other things like, Francoist Spain and Huey Long and both sides of the spectrum. These are historical nations. We don't support these groups or these nations. Sorry, we don't um, reenact these
We
nations
base
because of
we
their.
ba- you base himself off their aesthetics,
Yes,
not their true beliefs.
yes, that is why we do this. So in the end, we're here to have fun, and that's really it.
Well, I hope I haven't been one of those who started stupid debates and
No worries. You're a very based individual. I don't know if you realize it, but you're very traditionalistic. I would say you're more of a classical liberal than you are a social democrat because social, rather classical liberals tend to be more about the past. Essentially, they're more like the Democrats from the 60s and 70s, JFK era kind of people. JFK was like my favorite president, even though he was a Democrat. He was very patriotic, very American first, in my own opinion.
well, I think that's we're lacking a lot of that though. We're lacking a lot of patriotic unity within the country. And the thing is,
Yes.
we've thrown ourselves into how many numerous foreign conflicts in regards to other countries'
Yeah.
problems, and yet we should really only focus on that of our allies and that of ourselves.
Right.
Because we're at that point where we don't need to focus on creating all these proxy wars. I mean, really, let's be honest, the only real threat we can actually face is China. And anything else, I mean, we don't really need to be such a mobilized society. If you get what I mean by that.
Yeah. Uh, of course.
I have a feeling I kind of lost you there.
Uh, well, it's more I don't want to drift off into politics. I want to kind of stay towards this platform. At the
uh,
same time, I think that the left is not very for national unity, in my own opinion. I think that they're quite the opposite. I think there are some of the right wing too that are like that too. Like the right wing establishment, obviously, are opportunist. But I think if I were
Definitely.
to, the most patriotic, the most uh, moral group of people would be on the right. The people on the left are more about tolerating, are more about equality, and are more about wants. People on the right are more about tradition, preservation of ideas, patriotism and nationalism, and traditionalism. And
there's really nothing wrong with the aspects of the left, but the thing is, though, they lack the idea of creating national unity.
right,
They lack the basis or in the central leadership to even accomplish all of that in a rational manner.
right. I'd say the only base leftists are the left-wing populists, because a lot of left-wing populists agree with me on a lot of like racial statistics or on the LGBTQ and stuff, and they're like, yeah, to an extent disagree at the same time, we have to tolerate them. And it's interesting
Yeah.
because most leftists won't admit that. They'll admit, like, oh, or if they won't admit, they'll say, like, oh, these are good people. They're just like us. We're all human, just because they're, a trans doesn't make them different. They have no mental illness. The left-wing populists admit that they're mentally ill, admit that there's issues with multiculturalism as a whole, but they don't want to pursue a resolve against them. They admit that there are issues with these ideas, but still maintain the idea of equality. And so they're kind of like the old socialists of the 20s and 30s. For instance, Stallman of the Weimar Republic, who was a socialist, was very nationalistic. In one of his speeches, he didn't just say socialism, he said not just socialism, but Germanic socialism for Germanic people. He had a very nationalistic rhetoric when it came to his policies. And so a lot of the socialists of that time period were very based up until after the Cold War. Western socialism rose, and they were a lot more liberal when it came to social policies. But on to the next question. I don't want to get too off topic with this.
Yeah, that's going into a philosophical debate we should honestly have in another podcast.
Yeah.
All right, question 11. In comparison to your own community, what groups do you think actually hold up to their base principles?
Oh God. None. None. I don't think
This
any
is
of
good.
them. Oh man. Well, let's see. Lewis's original basic principles was basically Nazism, which obviously doesn't uphold anymore.
Nope.
Lavo's principles at the beginning were about 1984 and establishing a super clan regime of, fanatics. And, well, turns out everyone in there are basically shitposts. Zofil, his main goal was basically to establish a principle of like IRF tier activity. He never really reached that. And he also compromised on the idea of a serious group in exchange for shit posters. Nerfer Dude used his original cause was with Lewis. We'll make an exception and say it's the Allied
full
cause.
shit posters as well.
His OSS was. I don't think he was, but he compromised on his ideas about destroying the Axis. In 2018, I remember he made an exception and allowed some Axis groups to exist. In 2019, he had a German division to WP for my men to serve
Yes,
in.
I remember that.
So he compromised on those principles. The list goes on. There are barely anyone on here that remains consistent in their ideologies. When it comes to me, however, I've been quite consistent. Although we're not nationalistic like we were in 2015, we were very serious about loyalty. As a matter of fact, we actually, during German Force 1940s, one of the biggest things I looked for were loyalists to me. Those who were loyal to me and those who were loyal to Netniks. And so since day one, I have maintained the principles of loyalty. Maybe at the time it wasn't to me directly, it was to me indirectly, but not directly. But I've always maintained that same principle. And I've maintained that same consistency. And I've held up to these principles. I've never one day just said loyalty is a waste of time. I've never said that. I've never said that it's, a useless principle that doesn't work well. It obviously works. It obviously is effective. And it obviously is going to be maintained for as long as I can. And it will not die out as one of my most core principles. And in comparison to these other groups, they obviously do not really hold up to their principles that well.
No, they do not.
They love compromise.
There's one exception I will make. There's one exception, and this will be controversial, and I know we'll get a lot of flack for this, but Canada 1940s, they've stuck to democratic principles.
Ah,
That is the only really cool give to them, because I remember back when I was running for with my good old pals at the Canadian National Party, which was which is actually more or less a rightist party, but like it was formed by a bunch of veterans. But Canada 1940s, I'd say that has to be the only group that actually has stuck up to at least its own democratic principles and the idea of liberty and so on and so forth. Unlike,
yeah,
Nerfer dudes quasi liberty, one party totalitarian state.
yeah. I
Oh my, the hypocrisy with all of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The only thing I don't think that they maintained is they're a bit weird. At first, they were into the community for a bit, and then they became isolationist for quite a while, and they still are isolationists. So they've, I don't,
Yeah, they are, but I kind of had a part in that.
right. Well, I guess they're a fair example for someone that's maintained their principles, but at the same time, they're way too quiet to really be judged at this point. They have maintained their
Yeah.
principles, and I'll give them that.
Well, they've maintained their own democratic principles. I mean, the principles of a good army. I mean, oh my God,
Yeah.
the amount of nonsense that was going on there mm,
You
just a
couldn't
few
even
months
call an
ago, and so
army.
on and so forth.
More or less a
No,
rabble.
it's just like full of memers and so on and so forth. And then you had the few rallies that they'd actually be able to hold. But I mean, oh God, the amount of immaturity, the amount of uselessness from some divisions, it's incredible.
Yeah. Alright.
Okay, 12th and final question. What are your plans in regards to influencing the community and expanding your ideology?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that most of the old gens, and I mean, someone DM me is like, what do you mean old gens? You mean all the veterans? You want to exterminate all the veterans? What do we do to you? And it's like, no, 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 no. You guys are all good. I have veterans in my own ranks. I mean, the old gen leaders, Lewis, Lavo, Zophiel, Nerfer, all those guys, they need to go. They need to go bye-bye, quit the platform, and their time is over. So once they are defeated, I think a new era, should take over. You know, we have Joe, we have Freddy, we have Cab, we have myself, we have Hines, we have all these new
You have
leaders.
William.
Oh yeah, and we have Joe. I think I mentioned him.
Oh wait.
And
Oh wait, that William
Wilhelm, the guy that is king of
Normandy. Oh, that's
yes,
his.
Joe
Oh,
is
okay. I
his
never
name.
knew that actually.
Yes. So I think that we should take over and, start something anew. I think this whole Nerfer versus Lavo thing has gotten old, boring, and has died off. Nerfer can barely last a month anymore, let alone
Yeah.
a few weeks. Lavo can barely last a few weeks himself anymore. Zophiel straight up just died. Lewis is dead. I think it's time that we...
You heard he's starting up GAR again.
Oh, for the love of God. Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's gonna be round 3, I think.
I don't even know at this point. What a horrid aesthetic. Waste of time, honestly. He doesn't even have the following to do it. How's he going to do anything? Without the money, without the manpower, he can't do anything. And if he tries to, he'll be annihilated because I have dedicated my entire following and preparation to removing these
Well,
people.
you can have the
I do have the developers, I have the funding, I have the resources, the
yeah, I mean,
manpower, I have all the resources available to conduct this. And once they are gone, I feel like what will happen is we have Joe is going to try and form. So Joe and Freddy actually both are kind of like close allies, as is Hines. They want to form like this monarchist front and this new ally community. And it's like, a big Rutrow moment. It's like
yeah.
they're becoming the new Nerfer and John and Sword.
Well,
And
I mean, I think it's good. I think
yeah,
it's good.
I don't think it's a bad thing
Allow
either.
for a fresh breath of air, and then my own plans in regards to if I can even manage to get enough people on board with the idea, that French Empire thing.
Yeah, I think that if I became the new Lewis and they became the new Nerfer, I wouldn't really mind. Uh, I just don't. The only thing I want to get rid of, and I made the same complaint in 2018, is I feel like this should be like, turning on the randomized ideology feature on Hoi 4. I think that doing World War II over and over and over again with completely different nations is getting a bit repetitive. I'm tired of Axis versus Allies every single day. Why can't we have like, complete utter random like, oh, monarchists fighting Richterists, then the communists come in and they try to start something. It's like, why don't we just do something like that and not it's the Axis versus the Allies. It's getting a bit boring at this point. I think we should have different alliances, different groups, different formations of empires, and battle them all against each other. The final
Yeah.
war for genre conquest.
The Battle of the Nations. What was it? Leipzig?
Ah, yes. This genre reminds me a lot about the Napoleonic times and colonial times of these groups. Germany is literally split in like Holy Roman Empire with like 50 different German nations. We have,
Yep.
the uniforms are like bright color, just like the colonial uniforms were, and like every other month is another great war that goes on. You know,
Yeah.
so it's really interesting though. All these made-up ideologies and factions and nations being pit up against one another. I think that my ideology is actually a replacement for communism, and dare I say this, but also fascism in this genre.
Really?
I believe so. When's the last time we've seen a very far right empire, yet alone a very far left empire that isn't Richterist, or has
I
their
mean
own
that that
interests?
that's actually quite true. I mean, the last time we ever saw anything like that was back when the IRF, but even they switched to what democratic monarchist and so on and so forth, and then full on absolute monarchy, and then democratic monarchist again, and now space commies.
Yeah, I think that it's honestly a good thing that people are creating their own ideologies and replacing real life ideas with their own concepts, because the more imaginative, the more original, more creative something is, the more unique and the more attractive it will be. The more dynamic things are, the more fun it will be. You know, I think that
Definitely.
things that aren't dynamic become boring and repetitive. And with these new aesthetics and ideas, it will create something a ton more dynamic. And we see that there's over a dozen different groups that say that they're Richterists, and they're active too. Bulgaria's rallying like 20 people, Vietnam rallying about 20 people, Macedonia about 10 people. Yugoslavia is starting up soon, and they're Richterists. We have a Richterist
Tito.
yeah, we have all these different groups that claim to be Richterists. They're putting up statues of Richterist leaders, and they're establishing Richterist doctrines, and it's like we've literally replaced communism with Richterism. And there's like no fascist groups either, or far right groups. There's nothing that's like anything like that. I think
Well, no
that
one can ever do in Italy. That
yeah,
the sad thing is, no one can ever do in Italy because, like, oh, Kingdom of Italy, World War II, fascism, no.
yeah. So I think these made-up ideologies will start to form besides monarchism. I know that monarchism. Joe is a very staunch monarchist. I know he's going to unify everyone under this monarchist ideology, which would be interesting. Battle the authoritarians. Because monarchism
Yeah.
is also authoritarian, just like Richterism, except monarchism is by divine rule. Richterism is by selected rule. We select our successors, and we have a council system and all those other more complicated stuff. Whereas a monarchy is a slightly less totalitarian, and more set by a divine rule by God, pretty much. And so the
Yeah.
battle of the authoritarian ideologies would be a very interesting concept, with the kings against regimes, and whoever would win that battle would be
And
pretty
if Can- and
interesting.
if Canada decides to get off its ass.
Oh yeah, I mean at this point, it's like Hearts of 4. All the non-aligned factions are democratic, you know.
Yeah, but just that one big group that's just like, okay, we release this new map, which they did, and it's hit or miss on my own
Yeah.
thing. I mean, it lags heavily on my PC because of what I use a laptop, but
So in
there's, it's, sorry. I've lost all words at this point.
Yeah. So in regards to expansion, I am going to expand my ideology. I am going to try and conquer and maintain my new empire that will be launching in 2 weeks. At the same time, uh, it's going to be fun. I think that we're going to have plenty of enemies, and it's going to be a very, very great war. I have not had a conflict as big as ambitious as this in a while. It will be fun. I can imagine the maps, tons of maps that we're fighting on, just being no man's land, just constant war, left and right. Almost perpetually like
Oh,
Oceania. That'd be interesting.
yeah.
Imagine a map that isn't like a city, but actually like an entire region. And let's say the map is about 1,000 by 1,000 studs, and it has. You've played Unturned, so kind of like an Unturned map, where it has all the cities down there and it has stuff like that. What if we had a map just like that? And literally,
One group did it.
there weren't raids, there weren't organized warfare. It was literally both nations would go to that map, and they would fight for control of that region for as long as they can.
Oh, and then like the map itself, it's like switches between groups and so on and so forth.
Actually, yes, they wouldn't patrol their own map; they would patrol that map.
Yeah.
Both nations would, and that's where everything would happen, and the fronts would switch. Maybe the front will be at the enemy's base. Maybe they'll be at the other guy's base. Maybe the map is like, an island map, and they have to fight over all these islands. I think that would be a great addition if we did that. The only issue with that is we'd have to all maintain that somehow. We have to maintain activity on that map somehow. But it is definitely an idea that I'm willing to push forward in the future. I think it'd be an interesting idea, in my opinion. A new style
If
of
you,
um of warfare.
yeah. Well, if you check what I just sent you, this map, I believe, is quite similar to what you were speaking about,
Mm,
though it sort of acts as a bit of a city map, more or less. But it's like a wide open range area and so on and so forth.
I think
There's a
another
lot of,
idea that'd be interesting would be an actual war map, and it'd be a group, like Death of Dishonor almost, and you'd have like 10 terrain maps for fighting.
oh yeah,
We could do that
or
as
the
well.
or those large Napoleonic groups, like where they have all the nations ally to that one group, and then they host raids on those maps, so
Yes.
nothing's biased or anything like that.
Yes, I
Even
think
the,
that would be
I
cool.
think the Victorian community did that as well.
Yeah, that would definitely be quite cool if we could do something like that.
Well, it all depends on whether people are willing to actually put aside their differences and actually, okay, you know what, we're going to make this community more enjoyable. We're not going to resort to petty things such as doxing and so on and so forth, or leaking each other's nudes.
Alright. Uh, any other questions you have for me, Mr. Rommel?
I have no other questions, and has been a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure talking with you as well. Uh, I thought this would be pretty interesting to talk about, considering it's more about my community and the ideology surrounding it, and you know, mostly about because people are always curious, what is Richterism? What is the perfect loyalist? All these questions for me, and it's better just to make a video on it, talk about it, find it all just right there. But been a huge pleasure talking to you, Mr. Rommel, and
Of course.
thanks for having me on here, I suppose. So,
Oh, it was a pleasure,
all right,
and hope you have a very good night.
you as well. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Farewell.